Salt of the Earth Farm Stories is proudly brought to you by Grig Media. From generations-old family farms to innovative sustainable practices, each episode offers a glimpse into the resilience, passion and dedication of Australian farmers and explores the profound connection between people and the land. Be inspired by the stories of those who sow the seeds of the future.
Got a better understanding of chemistry and what happens now with liming. So it was always the old rule that, lime doesn't move. You put it on the soil, you're only changing the pH of the soil where you've applied that lime. What we've learnt through this process is that the messages that we were giving in the 80s around how to lime were actually too conservative.
In today's episode, we chat with Dr. Alison Southwell, the CEO of Holbrook Landcare Network. This organisation is leading the charge in agriculture, conservation and community. Alison shares exciting projects like the Southern Pygmy Perch Program, innovations in ag, and the work around acidic soils and liming. We also explore the role of soil chemistry, the importance of perennial pastures and environmental markets. Plus we talk about future innovations like satellite imagery on farms and building resilience into our landscapes. And of course, we've got some fun, off-the-wall questions. Let's get into it. Good morning, Alison.
Hello, how are you going?
I'm really good. Alison, today I want to explore the intersection of agriculture, land conservation and community involvement. And you have a huge role in this as the CEO of Holbrook Landcare Network. Can you tell us a little bit about Holbrook Landcare Network and its vision?
Yeah, so Holbrook Landcare Network's 34 years old this year, turning 35 soon.
One of the first?
One of the first, so the Bob Hawke era, initial landcare movement. There was even a farmer group before it was officially Landcare that were working together in the Holbrook area, and came about through landholder concern about what they were seeing in the paddocks, dieback, dryland salinity, things like that popping up, and the need that they saw to be able to put trees back in the landscape. So it has always been producer driven and now has a very wide portfolio of projects that expands from conservation of endangered species in waterways through to bushfire recovery programs, through to acid soils and ag tech innovation and farm business management. So a whole systems approach to looking at how to improve production and environmental outcomes on land.
So what would your vision be?
So the Holbrook Landcare Network has a vision for an economically and socially resilient rural community, demonstrating strong environmental stewardship. So it's about being there for the environment, but to bring the community and the vibrancy of the community in terms of its production systems with it.
Well said. So you have a board, and how many? And are these generally local farmers?
So we have 9 members on our board, so a pretty big board for an organisation like ours. They are all locals, but we have a mixed board. We have farmers, but also a skills-based board. So we have people specialising in governance on there. We have a sociologist on there. We have an ecologist on that board. We've got a number of farmers. We've got a financial expert on the board as well. So really diverse mix of skills on the board, which is really important. But the important thing is they also all subscribe to the same values of having strong, resilient community, but evidence base around the work that we do, so that we've got comfort and strength in the messages that we're trying to portray.
And I had the privilege to sit down and talk to your chairman, Marcus Richardson. If anyone wants to learn a little bit more about Marcus, that's episode 14 on Salt of the Earth Farm Stories. So big picture, Alison, how does your organisation work? You take on various grants that support local landholders?
Yes, so we work with a range of funding organisations. We work with the federal and state governments, and we also work with the rural development corporations, so particularly Meat and Livestock Australia and GRDC, Grains Research Development Corporation. And we carry out projects on their behalf that are around research, development and extension. So we work with a wide range of organisations to do that. We rarely do anything on our own. It's all very collaborative. We've got partners in Australian National University, CSIRO, Local Land Services are a very solid partner of ours, Charles Sturt University, who's on our doorstep, and many, many more. A lot of the farming systems groups in the southern region as well, through the Ag Innovation Collective, which is a collective of these organisations, and then also with our surrounding land care groups as well.
And at the end of the day, this is to help our local landholders, isn't it? To be better farmers and perhaps farming more sustainably?
Yeah, so we exist for our members and the surrounding local community. And so one of the key things when we're looking at whether to take on projects is to ask the question, well, how is this benefiting our local community? And we have a strategic plan that we work to, and it's very much about offering a quality service and a quality source of information and resources to farmers. It's also about maintaining a solid skill set within the organisation so that we can draw on that for different projects. And we employ up to 11 or 12 people at any time. And so it's also about, we've got an economic role in the community now as well.
And I've been lucky enough to produce various videos with you for Holbrook Landcare Network. And it seems you have many really passionate and clever landholders in the area.
Yes, we're blessed with the landholders we have. Yes, we wouldn't be able to do half the things that we do. Well, we wouldn't be able to do any of the things that we do without our landholders. Our office is in town. We don't have any land as such, and so everything we do is on our members' properties. So if we want to run a demonstration, if we want to do trial work, it's all in partnership with our landholders.
And Holbrook Landcare Network works across a range of environmental issues. Can you tell me just a couple of your current projects you might be on?
I get so excited talking about our projects. There's so many cool things that we do. At one end, we like, as I said, we do, the conservation projects. We've got projects where we're looking at in-stream habitat for the threatened Southern Pygmy Perch. And I was talking to one of my project officers yesterday, and we've done some eDNA testing of some of the creeks, and we've found new populations via the eDNA testing. Now we've gone back and we've confirmed that the populations are there, and we're about to do some electrofishing in those streams to actually see, well, how big are those populations and
Of
what
Southern
can we do.
Pygmy Perch?
Of Southern Pygmy Perch,
Wow.
yeah. So, that sort of stuff's kind of cool. Whilst that's really interesting, that's only for a few of the members that really cling on to that. We also have a lot of projects that are trying to deal with common issues. So one that we're doing at the moment is around farm water, and we're in a really dry time, so it's about giving practical options, helping producers understand how much water they've got, how much they actually need, and also implications for quality around those waters and what they does to their production systems. And where we can get multiple benefits, for example, where we can learn about fencing off those dams to improve the habitat around those and actually reduce wind speeds and evaporation off those dams and keep water quality better. Here's your biodiversity outcome, but also your production outcome. And then you couple that with other work that we do around innovation, where, such as where we might be extracting water via reticulation into troughs and things like that, and bringing on innovations such as FarmBot to be able to look at ways to manage that water easier so farmers can actually go on holidays and have confidence that their stock are being watered while they're away. So I guess we're doing a range of things, but it's hitting on different parts of the production and farming system that producers are doing. Other stuff we're doing, you can tell I'm passionate about this.
I'm loving it.
We set up a project a couple of years ago with New South Wales DPI where we saw some climate change scenario modelling that was done, and it showed that our region was going to have wetter summers, and that the opportunity for tropical pasture species, Premier Digit, has been really successful in these areas, and we actually have producers now trialling those and figuring out, well, how do you actually get them to work as part of their production system? So that's, and ever since we've started that, we've had wet summers, and so we're actually getting some really good ideas around how useful these species are in terms of the farm economics and the production systems, and how it can help solve a couple of problems such as bloat in young stock through summer when you don't necessarily want to stick them straight onto your lucerne pastures. So things like that. We also have an acid soils program, and that's expanding into looking at other nutrient issues on farm at the moment. And so our biggest production limitation is acid soils. And so we've been working for the last 6 or 8 years, I would say, with New South Wales DPI, and looking at understanding and running trials on acid soils and how we can actually lime better. And what we've actually done during that time is, through the work we've done with the New South Wales DPI, they've discovered that, well, they've got a better understanding of chemistry and what happens now with liming. So it was always the old rule that, lime doesn't move. You put it on the soil, you're only changing the pH of the soil where you've applied that lime.
Yeah.
What we've learnt through this process is that the messages that we were giving in the 80s around how to lime were actually too conservative. It suited the economics at the time, but what we were saying was just put on, 2.5 tonne every 10 years or so.
Yeah.
And it wasn't enough. Our systems are way too productive for that. And what we've discovered through this work with DPI is that if you actually increase your target pH range, you can actually change the way the chemistry works within the liming, within the lime when it's, in the soil, and you can actually get it moving down the profile beyond where you can incorporate and so the subsoils. So that's really exciting. And so we've got a lot of trials in different areas showing the increasing pH down the soil profile for pH, keep using these higher target pH levels. So now that message is getting out there into the community, and we're actually seeing that producers are changing the way they soil test now.
Yeah.
And also we're seeing that they are taking on those higher pH targets and having a bigger influence on their production systems. Yeah.
And are we looking and researching deeper into the soil these days? I know people, and you're all for digging pits and having a good look at, 1.5 metres into the ground and having a look at the different layers. Are we doing that more now?
Yeah, we are. We're understanding that you have to not just look at the top 10 centimetres, you have to look at the entire root zone. And so you're not going to have a productive, resilient pasture if the roots are only 10 centimetres deep. You actually need them to be penetrating further than that. And perennial pastures need to go further than that. Otherwise, you may as well have annual pastures. So we're definitely looking at those sorts of things too, and working with companies who can actually help you organise your soil test data so that you've got both spatial and time descriptions of what's actually going on in your soil.
A stack of projects, and that's probably only touched on a few.
Yeah, it has actually, and they're always changing. We've got new projects coming on now that are actually looking at the genetic diversity within the species that we use for revegetation and what we impact bringing same species but different cultivars, if you like, or different genetics from drier zones and bringing them into our area to help bolster local genetics in the face of climate change. So not new species necessarily, but better genetics able to withstand drier periods.
Yeah, it's crazy that we're thinking about that, getting a species further north, like from Parkes or Forbes, I think, and introducing them to here.
Well, it's very likely that we could in 50 years have a climate like Dubbo in Holbrook. Part of our job is to help producers prepare.
Yeah.
We've been running a community impact program with the Foundations for Regional Rural Renewal as well. And that is not about the farm. It's not about the environment. It's about the people. And so working with local leaders, bringing groups, different parts of the community together to talk about how we can improve the resilience of our local community, and then supporting locals within the community to step up and be leaders in their local community and run events and build that social fabric between people within the community. So I guess we've got the environment, we've got the community, we've got the ag business production side of things as well. So we are trying to hit on the whole of the farm system, and hopefully our members feel like there's something for them, even if they're not interested in the production or the environment or the community, one of them, that there's something that they're interested in all the time.
I can see why you're a good CEO. You're quite passionate. What are some of the biggest challenges facing landholders in our region right now, such as climate change or biodiversity or soil health?
That's a tricky one. If you talk to producers right now, it's probably terms of trade and getting the farm business economics right at the moment. The beef prices are pretty good, but there's a lot of input costs rise going on at the moment, and there's a lot of feeding going on. And so we've also got a bit of a change in who's running the farm now. The next generation is coming through, and they're not as experienced at drought as the previous generation. So I think there's quite a bit of stress within the local farming community at the moment. There was a lot of talk about environmental markets coming on and being a diversified income source, but it's not turning out that way.
Not yet.
Right at the moment.
Farming today, it's a big business and they need to get as much out of it as possible. But how does your organisation balance the needs of today's farmers with future-proofing the land for generations to come?
Look, it's a perennial struggle. You've got some major expenses at the moment around insurance, and land prices are huge. And so there is the need at the moment to not necessarily get bigger in terms of the farms that you manage, but get more productive off the farms that you manage. So there needs to be a big focus on improving soils, which is both an environmental and production improvement, and about doing what they do better. I think the environmental markets will come, and I think when it does, there will be a bit of a rationalisation occur on farms in terms of looking at where are the productive parts of the farm and where are those that will produce or generate more income by carrying out carbon or environmental works to improve the opportunities around environmental market access. Yeah, it's a little bit of an unknown yet how all that is going to go. It could be that there is no improvement or premium for well-managed farms. It could be simply that there's market access issues if they're not doing it. So I think generally, what we're trying to promote is that being a good environmental steward is also being a good farmer in terms of both production and, the environmental outcomes. And if you're keeping both of those in sight, then you're going to have a resilient system into the future.
Well said. And there's a diverse group of farmers and landholders within your network, cropping, livestock and mixed operations. Is it a juggle to assist all those?
Is it a juggle? I'd say not. I'd say it's more that's part of the fun.
Yeah.
You get to have many partners and get involved in many different things. It's a juggle to make sure that we have staff with the skills and capacity to do it, but we pride ourselves on attracting good people. And so if we can maintain good staff, then I think we can manage it fine. Most farms are not one-trick ponies. They're diverse anyway. So I think the diversity of projects actually helps because there's always something new going on.
Yeah, and it's not just landholders you're partnering with. You said earlier you've got to partner with local and federal governments and agencies.
Yes, look, we partner with a lot of different groups. Wherever there's a common goal, a common outcome sought, we're deliberately collaborative. A lot of these things you can't fix or solve on your own.
No.
And so working with others is pretty important to what we do.
And even farmers learning from farmers is really beneficial, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I think farmers learn best from farmers. What we are trying to do is always build an opportunity for farmers to have access to good information, and then also build them the opportunity to have that social learning environment where they get to chew the fat with other farmers and talk about how that information works in their situation and fits on their farm. Because you can give the same message to 4 or 5 different farmers and they'll all perceive it differently. They'll take away different parts of what you've said. And it's all about the quality of information with strong evidence behind it, so that they can then make that information fit for them and work to improve their farm, regardless of the type of system they're running.
Are there any innovative projects or initiatives on the horizon that excite you?
Oh, lots. We've got a project at the moment where we're trying out innovations or technologies, I should say, on farms for improving pasture management. So there'll be some satellite imagery, there'll be some drones, there'll be some other technologies as well. And what we're trying to do is put an economic and social lens over how we view the application of those technologies to capture what farmers, how it changes the way they make decisions, and does it help them make more timely, better decisions, or is it a distraction?
Yeah.
So it's not always innovation for the sake of innovation. It's got to be about, taking on technologies and new innovations that actually build performance into their systems.
But for some, it must be hard to adapt to a new system.
It is. If there's a good value proposition, such as the economics match up to what's reasonable and it allows me to go on holidays or to be able to do something that I couldn't do previously, time is a really important thing on farms. So if the value proposition is there, some people won't adopt straight away, but if others are taking it on and seeing benefit, then they'll take it on. Starlink is a perfect example around our area. It solves so many mobile phone coverage issues and internet access issues for people, and you can see people are taking it up more and more.
Yeah. How do you see the role of young people and the next generation of farmers in land care practices?
I think we're fortunate in the Holbrook area in that the older generation have a deep investment in the organisation and its legacy. You can see it when you drive down the highway, that legacy standing out. And it seems to me that this has been passed on to the next generation. So there's been a cultural shift, I think, in our area, that revegetation is not taking land away from production. It's actually building greater resilience into what they do for various reasons. So I think Holbrook is lucky in that that's been taught to the next generation. I don't think other areas are so lucky in that space, but it's still going to be a challenge over the next 10, 20 years to keep that investment in there. What we're seeing within government agencies is a real pullback on spending of public funds on private land.
Yeah.
So the opportunity to assist farmers to do their revegetation, putting in fences and paying for trees and things like that, it's getting harder and harder. If it was more available now, I think people would be doing a lot more of it. But there's a belief, I think, amongst government that the market will take care of that issue.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's quite the case yet.
Wow. As CEO, what's been your biggest learning curve or challenge in leading the Holbrook Landcare Network?
I'm going to be very boring and say what every CEO says. It's the people management, just understanding their needs and how to support them to do their jobs well as making sure that we're meeting members' expectations. We've been really fortunate in the last 3 years that we've gone through a really big expansion in staff numbers and the project portfolio size, largely to investment through the Future Drought Fund.
Yeah.
And I guess the more people you have, the more people management you have to do. And
Yeah.
I'm so blessed in that I've got a really great team. They're
have.
just an awesome bunch of people. So they do make that easy or easier, but it's still making sure that the staff and the team are in good shape is always the biggest challenge.
You have got a great team. I've been lucky enough to work with most of them. How has the role shaped your own perspective on farming and sustainability?
So I actually wasn't involved in land care before coming to this job. I think I had a natural appreciation for environment because of my background and where I've grown up and the type of farming that I've done. I think what I've learnt most since coming to Holbrook is that you can actually be a professional farmer and have strong environmental ethics.
Yeah.
It's not a compromise. You actually can be productive and professional in farming and have strong environmental ethos behind what you do at the same time.
There's probably more awareness now on biodiversity on farms and the benefits, is there? We talk about it a bit more.
We do talk about it a bit more. It's still intangible in a lot of ways, but I think gradually science is helping to fill that in. I think the challenge is where there isn't the science and we're talking as if they're tangibles, that we run into challenges and probably within the farming community disagree with each other.
Yeah. So how can a farmer get involved in some of your projects?
Join.
Yeah.
We have a fortnightly newsletter that's putting out information on what the projects are doing. There's always expression of interests. There's always events coming up. Talk to me, talk to one of my team. We're all very approachable and come along to something. We'd love to have you there. We have members from across a big area. You do not need to be from Holbrook anymore. It's all about being part of a community.
Is there a particular success story or project that stands out to you?
Oh, there's a lot of success stories. Look, I think the biggest win that we've had over the last 2 years, well, actually, it's just happening now, is we actually ran a project funded by the Future Drought Fund that brought together the landcare community across the Murray region in a community of practice to learn about environmental markets and carbon markets and how landcare is going to participate into the future. We already spoke about the reduction in public funds on private land, so we're not going to be doing the same thing we used to in the future. So we built a community of practice so that we're preparing as a landcare community to participate in those future opportunities, and we don't know what it looks like yet. We're still working on that. There could be a service provision role for us in the future around environmental markets. We're trying to now help profile for farmers what natural assets they have on their farms so that they have information about what opportunities may exist for them into the future, and build our skill set so that we're ready to be able to provide that support to farmers so they can participate in these future markets. But the best part of what we did in that project was we produced 2 books and a website. So we revamped the revegetation guide. It's brand new. We've had a very senior project officer who's been in the region for a very long time, so she pretty much dumped her brain into this book.
I've seen that book. And I actually saw you launching it at the Henty Field Days.
Yeah, and so there's one for Southwest Slopes and there's one for the Riverina. So hot off the press, if anyone wants one, they can come and we'll give them a copy. And there's also a website so they can jump on and look at that, and that we can keep updated and has a deeper dive into certain topics with more information and so on. But you can actually go in now and for your specific area, have a look at what species exist in your area, what does well, which part of the slope they are on, and advice around how to do your revegetation and the various techniques that we can do them in. So there's all the information at your fingertips now, and we've updated that and it's looking great.
Absolutely. And I think that particular senior project officer has taken off on her bike for 8 weeks.
I know.
How crazy.
We're missing her already, yes, but she's doing her thing out in the nature, so she's loving it.
All right, Alison, here's the fun part. The off-the-wall questions get a little bit quirky. All right, so answer as many as you like. You probably visit a lot of farms. What's the most memorable or unexpected thing you've seen in your travels?
Look, I think the most interesting and possibly, no, not odd, I wouldn't call it odd because it didn't seem odd, it was just unexpected, was to arrive at a farm in Womargama and find an art gallery in a wool shed. That was pretty exciting.
Yeah,
Mm.
art and farming.
Art and farming. They yeah.
There you go. That's a good one.
They do work. Yeah.
If there were one thing you could change or improve about the Landcare movement as a whole, what would it be and why?
Look, the one thing I wouldn't change is the people. There is so much passion in Landcare. People take it on as a life's work, and that's exciting. You know,
Yeah.
they're that passionate. They give back to community. You know, they're the sort of people you want to hang around, really, Landcare coordinators. I think the things that would change are the boring governance type stuff, you know, how we can build a sustainable model into the Landcare movement so that Landcare coordinators can do their thing and actually enable them more to support farmers to do their thing. I'm a big advocate for building the professionalism of Landcare coordinators so that just like you go to your agronomist for advice on your cropping or pasture systems, you go to your local Landcare coordinator for advice on your revegetation and your biodiversity.
So on that note, if you could trade places for a day with one of your staff members, who would you choose and why? I'm picturing Kylie down the creek looking at a Southern Pygmy Perch, or Steph out looking at pastures.
Look, I reckon it would have been Kylie. Yeah, she's, you know, out in the morning visiting a farm, back in during the heat of the day, always something new and interesting going on. Yeah, never a dull moment, really. Good diversity of activities.
I don't know whether I'd want to be her right now. She's probably riding up some steep hill on her bike. You've got a lot of farmers in your network. If you could send one of them on a completely unrelated adventure, be it a cooking school for a week, climbing Mount Everest, who would it be and what do you think they'd learn from it?
I don't think I'd single out one particular member, but I would like to take a bunch of them on an international trip. So I used to take university students on international study tours to Vietnam. And I would love to take a bunch of Holbrook farmers over to see how circularity can work, particularly in terms of how you can get no waste on farms and see how others live. I reckon it would be so much fun to take a group of producers on a study tour to a developing country like that.
I'll come.
Yeah, I'd love to come again too.
Yeah. Let's say Holbrook Landcare Network could adapt a mascot, an animal that represents the heart of your work. What animal would it be?
I reckon I'm going to go the grey striped thrush.
Oh, nice.
Because when you look at the bird, it's rather plain. It's not striking, but then you hear it sing, and oh my goodness. So, you know, it's about being unpretentious, but having great outcomes. So I'm going to go with the grey striped thrush.
I love that. I love that. And if you could give Holbrook Landcare Network a theme song, what would it be?
I said to my staff a few months ago, we were talking about theme songs for a podcast idea that we had. And there's a song from The Greatest Showman about 1 million dreams. And I just thought, close my eyes and we'll see a story waiting there for me. 1 million trees were keeping me awake. And I thought, well, that's a good one.
I like it. Well, Alison, that wraps up this episode. And seriously, I've loved this honest, inspiring, interesting chat with you. You're such a clever lady. So well done and thanks for your time.
My pleasure. It's been a delight. Thank you.
A huge thank you to Alison for joining us today and sharing the incredible work done by the Holbrook Landcare Network. This organisation is truly making a difference in agriculture, conservation and our communities. If you missed our previous episode, be sure to check out episode 42, where we learn more about Alison at her own farm just north of Holbrook. And please follow us on Facebook. Search Salt of the Earth Farm Stories. Thanks for listening.